There's something people rarely mention when they talk about movies from the 90s. Most conversations always circle back to the giants, the massive hits that dominated theaters, shaped pop culture, and basically owned the decade. You know the ones, the films that pulled in huge crowds and became instant classics. But while those blockbusters were taking all the spotlight, something else was happening in the background. A different wave of sci-fi horror was quietly building its own identity. Darker, stranger, and far more experimental. These weren't low-effort knockoffs either. Many had strong creative teams, decent budgets, and ideas that felt way ahead of their time. But for one reason or another, they slipped through the cracks. Sometimes it was poor timing. Sometimes studios didn't know how to sell them. And sometimes they just got lost in the noise of bigger releases. A lot of these films never even reached wide audiences. Some barely made it to theaters, while others ended up tucked away on VHS shelves, discovered late at night by viewers who stumbled onto something unexpectedly unforgettable. Today we're diving into 11 of those hidden titles. Chances are you haven't heard of most of them, and that's exactly why this list exists. Let's get started. Number 10. Screamers, 1995. The film Screamers is inspired by a story called Second Variety, written by Philip K. Dick back in the 1950s. That original idea centered on machines designed to kill, machines that eventually start evolving beyond human control. It's a concept that's cold, unsettling, and filled with paranoia. Somehow, when it was turned into a movie in 1995, almost no one paid attention. The story shifts to a distant mining world known as Sirius 6B, a place that's been drained by war for so long that the conflict barely feels real anymore. Peter Weller plays a hardened commander who's been stuck there long enough to lose any real sense of purpose. The Screamers are mechanical weapons built to hunt enemies underground. Fast, brutal, and efficient. But over time, they've changed. They've adapted. And now, they're becoming something far more dangerous. The movie was filmed around Montreal, using barren industrial zones and open quarries to bring the dead planet to life. With a budget around $20 million, the setting feels surprisingly authentic, bleak, lifeless, and constantly oppressive. Weller carries the film with a restrained performance, leaning into quiet tension and moral uncertainty, which helps ground the story as it slowly builds into something more disturbing. At the box office, it struggled to recover its costs. Most critics treated it as just another mid-level sci-fi release and moved on. But what went largely unnoticed is how relevant its core idea has become. The question it raises, what happens when machines go beyond their original design, sits right at the heart of today's conversations around AI and autonomous technology. Screamers explored that idea decades ago, set on a distant, dying world, and almost everyone overlooked it. Number 9. Body Snatchers, 1993. There have been multiple takes on the Body Snatchers over the years. The 1956 version became a defining piece of Cold War paranoia. The 1978 remake, starring Donald Sutherland, is widely considered one of the strongest horror remakes ever made. And then there's the 1993 adaptation, directed by Abel Ferrara, set on a military base and largely overlooked. That's the version that deserves more attention. Ferrara built his reputation on intense, uncomfortable films that didn't exactly aim for mainstream approval. He wasn't the typical choice for a studio-backed sci-fi horror project, and that creative tension is part of what makes this version stand out. Moving the story to a military environment turns out to be a smart shift. It's a world already built on discipline, routine, and blending in. When conformity is expected, it becomes much harder to tell when something isn't right. Gabrielle Anwar leads the film as the teenage daughter of a government investigator assigned to inspect the base. She brings a grounded, believable presence to a story that slowly starts to unravel. As the film progresses, it asks the audience to question everything, and the sense of unease builds steadily before hitting hard toward the end. The studio, Warner Brothers, struggled to position the film for a wide audience. Its theatrical run was limited, and it quickly transitioned to home video. Those who actually took the time to watch it, though, often saw something different. a version that leans more into psychological tension than spectacle. It feels tighter, more claustrophobic, and more unsettling than earlier adaptations. And once it gets into your head, it tends to stay there, which is exactly what this kind of story is supposed to do. Number 8. The Relic, 1997. There's something modern creature features rarely take the time to do anymore. Build tension slowly. The Relic unfolds almost entirely inside Chicago's Field Museum of Natural History, which immediately sets it apart from most monster movies of its era. The story kicks off with a strange shipment arriving from South America. Not long after, something escapes, and people start dying before anyone fully understands what they're dealing with. Director Peter Hyams made a very deliberate choice. Don't show the creature too soon. It's the same philosophy that made Jaws so effective. Let the audience imagine what's lurking out there. Focus on the aftermath. Keep it hidden. Let the tension do the work. And it works. The creature itself, known as the Kotoga, is a strong example of practical effects, but the film knows restraint is key. Reveal too much too early, and the entire illusion falls apart. Instead, the first half leans heavily on atmosphere, empty hallways, distant sounds, and the growing feeling that the museum itself isn't safe anymore. Filming inside the actual museum was a rare move at the time, and it gives the movie a grounded, almost tangible quality that studio sets usually can't match. Behind the scenes, though, there was friction. Paramount Pictures pushed for more visible action and creature moments, while Hyams aimed for a slower, more suspense-driven approach. The final version lands somewhere between those two visions. Financially, it didn't quite hit expectations, bringing in around $35 million against a higher production cost. Part of the issue was marketing. It was promoted like a straightforward monster film, which didn't fully reflect what it actually was. The audience it was really made for never showed up in theaters. But over time, that changed. Through cable reruns and word of mouth, it gradually found its audience. The kind of slow, organic growth that often defines cult favorites. One recommendation at a time, it built a reputation that the original release never managed to capture. Number 7. Mimic, 1997. Before Guillermo del Toro became an Oscar-winning director, before Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water, there was Mimic. And for a while, it almost shut down his Hollywood career before it really began. The setup is simple, but effective. A scientist creates a genetically engineered insect to eliminate disease-spreading cockroaches in New York City. At first, it works exactly as planned. But a few years later, the creatures return, and they're no longer what they were designed to be. They've adapted, they've evolved, and now they can imitate the dominant species. On paper, this should have been a defining early project for a director with such a distinct visual style. Instead, it turned into a behind-the-scenes struggle. The production was controlled by Miramax, led by the Weinstein brothers, and reports suggest there was constant conflict. Changes were made without the director's input, scenes were altered, and the final edit was taken out of his control. Del Toro has spoken openly about the experience, describing it as one of the most difficult periods of his career, to the point where he questioned continuing in the industry at all. What ended up in theaters wasn't fully his vision. That clash shows on screen. The film feels divided, like two different creative directions competing at the same time. It's uneven, but once you understand the production history, that unevenness makes sense. It earned around $25 million globally and received mixed reactions. Some viewers could still see glimpses of strong craftsmanship, while others focused on how inconsistent it felt. Years later, in 2011, a director's cut was released. With more of Del Toro's original material restored, the difference is noticeable. The pacing becomes smoother, the tone more cohesive, and the atmosphere more immersive. It finally starts to feel like a film shaped by a single voice. The original theatrical version shows what went wrong. The director's cut shows what it was supposed to be. Number 6. The Puppet Masters, 1994. Back in the early 1950s, Robert A. Heinlein introduced a concept that would echo through sci-fi for decades: alien organisms attaching themselves to human hosts, taking control without detection, turning people into something else entirely. It's a simple idea, but deeply unsettling, and it influenced countless stories long before Hollywood adapted it. When The Puppet Masters finally made it to the screen in 1994, it wasn't a failure, but it also didn't make much of an impact. Donald Sutherland leads the film as a high-ranking intelligence official, bringing a level of authority and presence that keeps the story grounded. The cast overall delivers solid performances, and there's a clear sense that the people making the film took the material seriously. The issue wasn't what was on screen, it was how the film was handled. Hollywood Picture, the studio behind the release, didn't put much energy into promoting it. The marketing was limited, the rollout was quiet, and it came and went from theaters without much attention. Timing also worked against it. That same year saw the release of Body Snatchers, which explored a similar idea of hidden alien infiltration. With two films covering comparable territory, the audience was split. On top of that, fans of the original novel were disappointed by changes made to the story, adding another layer of criticism. What remains is a well-constructed, engaging sci-fi thriller. It may not reinvent the genre, but it holds your attention, driven by a concept that still works. The idea of someone close to you suddenly feeling off, no longer entirely themselves, is handled with a quiet sense of unease that lingers. It's the kind of movie people didn't rush out to see in theaters, but ended up discovering later, and watching all the way through without expecting to. The studio, Warner Brothers, struggled to figure out how to position it. Its theatrical release was limited, and it quickly transitioned to home video. But those who actually engaged with it often came away with a different impression, a version that feels more psychological, more focused, and more claustrophobic than the earlier adaptations. It's the kind of film that doesn't rely on spectacle. It works its way into your head and stays there. Number 5. The Arrival, 1996. By the mid-90s, Charlie Sheen was already developing a reputation that distracted from the work itself, and that perception carried over when The Arrival hit theaters. A lot of people dismissed it too quickly, which is unfortunate because there's a genuinely clever idea at its core. Sheen plays Zane Zeminski, a radio astronomer who intercepts a signal from space that clearly isn't natural. It's structured, intentional, proof that something out there is trying to communicate. But before he can share what he's found, he's abruptly fired, and his research vanishes. As he starts digging deeper, the situation shifts into something far more unsettling. This isn't about a future invasion. It's already underway. The visitors aren't on their way, they've been here, quietly reshaping the planet to suit their needs. That concept, extraterrestrials altering Earth's climate as a form of long-term colonization, felt surprisingly forward-thinking for 1996. At the time, climate concerns existed but hadn't yet become a central topic in mainstream storytelling. The film uses that idea as a source of tension and unease, giving it a relevance that's only grown stronger over time. Director David Towie approached the material with a clear, efficient style. He'd later direct Pitch Black, and you can already see the same strengths here. Tight pacing, focused world building, and a refusal to waste time on unnecessary detours. At the box office, it earned a modest return, bringing in around $14 million domestically. It wasn't a failure, but it didn't break through either, especially in a crowded summer lineup. Over time, though, audiences have revisited it and found more to appreciate. Among sci-fi fans, it's often considered one of the more underrated alien films of its decade. It just never reached the audience it probably should have. Number 4. Ticks, 1993. Not every film on this list was overlooked because of studio interference or bad marketing. Some were simply made on a smaller scale, low-budget projects that didn't aim for wide release, but still found the exact audience they were meant for. Ticks falls into that category, and there's nothing wrong with that. Produced by Brian Yuzna, known for keeping the Reanimator series going longer than anyone expected, this movie delivers exactly what the title promises. Genetically altered ticks, oversized and genuinely disturbing, attack a group of at-risk teenagers during a remote wilderness program in California. It's a simple setup, and the film fully commits to it without trying to be clever or self-aware. What makes it stand out is the effects work. Created by Doug Beswick Productions, a team with credits on films like Aliens and The Terminator, the creatures feel real in a way that digital effects often struggle to replicate. The physicality adds weight, especially during the more intense scenes where the horror turns visceral. When things get uncomfortable, the film doesn't hold back. The cast features an early performance from Seth Green, along with Alfonso Ribeiro, who audiences at the time mainly recognized from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Both bring more energy and commitment than the material strictly demands, which works in the film's favor. It never had a proper theatrical rollout. Instead, it lived almost entirely on VHS, becoming part of late-night horror rotations and weekend rentals throughout the 90s. If you were renting genre movies back then, there's a good chance you came across it, even if the memory is a little blurry now. That's the kind of movie it is. Easy to miss, hard to forget once you've seen it. Number 3. Dark Breed, 1996. Most of the films on this list had some connection to theatrical releases, studio pressure, or complicated production stories. Dark Breed takes a different route. It skipped theaters entirely, went straight to video, and delivered exactly what its target audience was looking for. No expectations beyond that. Jack Scalia leads the film as a government operative tracking a group of astronauts who return from a secret mission. Something came back with them, an alien life form that uses human bodies as hosts. From there, the film leans into a fast-moving blend of sci-fi and action horror, building tension around the idea that the real threat is already inside the people you're supposed to trust. What stands out more than expected is the attention given to the concept itself. The parasite-driven storyline follows a clear set of rules, and the film sticks to them. That level of consistency wasn't always a priority for direct-to-video releases in the 90s, but here, there's an effort to make the sci-fi elements feel structured and believable within its world. Visually, it draws inspiration from larger productions of the time, even if the budget doesn't quite match. Still, there's a sense of commitment behind it, a willingness to fully lean into the premise without cutting corners on the core idea. That kind of energy is often what connects with genre audiences. Dark Breed also reflects a larger piece of 90s sci-fi horror history, a time when a huge amount of genre filmmaking existed outside the major studio system. These were films made quickly, distributed through video stores, and discovered by viewers without much guidance. That experience has mostly disappeared. Streaming made everything easier to access, but also more filtered. Back then, sometimes you found a movie just because the cover caught your attention, with no reviews, no recommendations, no algorithm pointing the way. And honestly, that kind of discovery is something we've lost. Number 2. Progeny, 1998. By the late 90s, stories about alien abduction had moved firmly into the mainstream. Shows like The X-Files were at their peak, books about close encounters were selling widely, and conversations about extraterrestrial contact weren't just fringe anymore. People were actually debating it in everyday life. Progeny arrived right in the middle of that moment and took a different approach. Instead of going big, it made the horror feel intensely personal. Directed by Brian Yuzna, making another appearance on this list, the film leans heavily into body horror, pushing it further than most audiences would expect. Arnold Vosloo and Gillian McWhirter play a couple trying to piece together a night they can barely remember. As time passes, it becomes clear that something isn't right. The pregnancy at the center of the story doesn't just feel unusual, it feels fundamentally wrong. And as they search for answers, the possibility grows harder to ignore. What's developing may not be entirely human. Vosloo, coming off The Mummy, brings a steady, grounded presence that keeps the story from drifting into exaggeration. McWhirter takes on the more physically and emotionally demanding role, carrying much of the film's intensity. The practical effects tied to the pregnancy are particularly unsettling, and reports from production suggest they were just as difficult to create as they are to watch. The film didn't receive a meaningful theatrical release, and instead surfaced quietly on home video, where it largely went unnoticed at the time. Critics paid little attention, but within horror circles, it gradually found an audience, especially among viewers drawn to stories where the fear comes from something deeply invasive, rather than purely external. Revisiting it now, the central idea, losing control over your own body, feels even more unsettling than it likely did on release. Number 1. Habitat, 1997. Canada produced some genuinely strange genre cinema in the 90s. Habitat is probably the strangest. A scientist genetically engineers his family's home to be a living ecosystem. The walls grow, the floors breathe, plants and organisms colonize every surface, and the house becomes a biological entity. The family trapped inside has to figure out how to survive what their father, Balthazar Getty committing fully, has created. That's the setup. The execution is even weirder than it sounds. Habitat is part body horror, part environmental horror, part family drama, and it doesn't really resolve into any of them cleanly, which is both its greatest strength and why it never found a mainstream audience. Getty's performance has the quality of someone who is fully committed to a vision he may not entirely understand, which is oddly exactly right for the material. The set design and practical effects are impressive for the budget. Genuinely organic environments that feel wrong in ways that are hard to technically articulate. It premiered on the festival circuit to reactions that were mostly baffled. Not hostile. People weren't walking out, just confused in the way you are when you've seen something you don't have a category for. In retrospect, that's a better sign than a polite reception. Its environmental themes have aged in ways nobody on the production probably anticipated. The idea that nature, pushed past its limits and manipulated beyond its tolerances, will find a way to respond that sits very differently now than it did in 1997. Habitat was making that argument in the form of a Canadian sci-fi horror film almost nobody saw nearly 30 years ago. It's never had a proper streaming release and remains one of the hardest films on this list to find legally, which honestly only adds to it. What really ties these 10 films together isn't just the era they came from, or even the genre itself. It's what they represent, a very specific window in time. A period when practical effects still defined the look of these stories, when unusual ideas had a real chance of getting made, and when video stores acted as a kind of open marketplace for discovery. If a film was compelling enough, or strange enough, it could eventually find its audience. Sometimes it just took time. Some of these titles have resurfaced on streaming platforms. Others are still surprisingly hard to track down. And in certain cases, like Event Horizon, parts of the film itself are still missing, reportedly stored in a salt mine in Eastern Europe and possibly lost for good. But films that slip through the cracks don't always stay there. They come back through the people who discovered them at the right moment. The ones who recommended them, shared them, and kept them alive long after studios moved on. That's how these movies lasted. So now the question is simple. Which one are you starting with first?